though we'll also try to give a little bit of time for people to ask questions. Okay, so we are going to go through A-level literature, and specifically, we're going to look at the two papers that we have in A-level literature. And this session is going to be run by Teacher Teddy, and by Teacher Solomon. I request that someone gives us a word of prayer so that we can officially start, as I hope that you can all see my screen. Any volunteer? Okay, any volunteer to give us an opening prayer? Yes, there's someone called S.6.
Okay, let's humble ourselves and pray. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. God, our loving Father, we thank you for this precious moment. We entrust into your hand this discussion that we are going to carry. We invoke your Holy Spirit to dwell in us, to dwell among us, and may you give wisdom and knowledge to our facilitators of today's session, that whatever they're going to give us may be imparted in us in a positive way, such that we may be able to pass our forthcoming examinations. We pray all this in the mighty name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, the representative from SMAG, all the way from Adjumani. It is good to know that we have people from all over who are following. So, Nelson, maybe you lower your hand so that I don't think that there's an issue already. So in this session, our objectives really are to try and distinguish between what is required of us in paper 1 and what is required of us in paper 2. Then to identify some key literary elements that we're going to use in paper 1 for section A and B analysis. And then also to understand the process of literary creation from a given scenario. So you realize that the creation focuses on paper 2, while the analysis focuses on paper 1. Okay. And in our session, we are going to see some of these things, so I don't want them to confuse you. Some terminologies. Literary analysis is one of them. And analysis is really just examining a text to see if you can create meaning out of what is written. So meaning in terms of plot, meaning in terms of themes, character, those things that your teachers have been talking to you about. Then you'll find the terminology, set items. Here we are referring to the set books. For our syllabus, I hope your teachers have exposed you to the books that you're supposed to have read. And for drama, you could have read either one or two of them. Shakespeare is inclusive. And then for the novel, you've also read some that NCDC recommended. So those are the set books. And then the one-act play that comes in drama. And it is in the second paper, as we shall see later. So those are the main terminologies that I thought needed to be known. Now, this is just an inspirational note, really. So this is 2026. We're going to be the very first year to do something, especially since we are the ones who started off the new curriculum. And I want you to imagine this as you're preparing yourselves. Imagine that you're given a blank page and 3 hours. In one paper, you're asked to tear apart a stranger's words, and then the other asks you to build a world from scratch. Which one scares you more? Now, despite our being scared, these are the two papers that we will have to do. In paper one, we are tearing apart strangers' words. People have already written, so we are analyzing, critiquing, whatever you want to call it. While in the other one, we are building a world from scratch. We are creating, whether it's a play or a novel, but we shall be building a world from scratch. So that being said, I want to inspire you to start, if you haven't already started, writing and writing as much as you can so that you can expose yourself to different styles of writing, etc., and the paper does not surprise you. So the success in A-level literature isn't just about reading, but it focuses on your analysis and the flair of your original voice. How can you create? How can you come up with an original work of art? So it's not just about reading, but those two things. You should be able to analyze, and you should also be able to come up with something original. So that is going to be our focus this evening, and I hope we are ready and up to the task before us. Now I'll get into the overview of the two papers. Like I've already said in the previous slide, both papers are going to be 3 hours, with one looking or testing our analysis. So we should be competent at analyzing and appreciating poetry, appreciating prose, appreciating drama, and appreciating novels or short stories. So our paper one is really on analysis. Then our paper two is our ability to create. We're going to be asked to produce original work. It could be a play, it could be a short story. So your mind needs to get ready for these things. I know your teachers have already talked about them. So really mine is to emphasize and maybe just re-echo what your teachers have said. So those are two papers that we have. One is literary analysis, the other is literary creation. Okay. So I'll get into paper one first. Teacher Solomon, do you want to take on this slide?
I will be glad to, Teacher Teddy.
Okay. Over to you.
Thank you so much. Like you, I'm also grateful for the presence of all students from across the country. So basically, like Teacher Teddy has said, I am going to talk about paper one, and basically I'm going to explain matters connected to section A. Now, when we talk about section A, please take note that it is a section where we do extracts. I know you must remember the literature of S4. You saw that in your S4 literature, in that paper, there was a section in the paper where you were tasked to attempt questions on extracts that are not familiar. So the same case happens when it comes to A-level literature. So when it comes to A-level literature, we are dealing with unfamiliar extracts or extracts from texts that we have not seen or read before. Now, what is the purpose of having us to attempt unfamiliar texts or extracts? The objective is to make sure that we can apply or we can express the fact that we really understood the different literary elements that we studied in class since senior 5. Now, what are the sources of these unfamiliar extracts? 1, expect that the extract in section A can be a poem. 2, it can be an extract from a novel or what you'd call prose or a passage. 3, that extract can be a piece of drama or an extract from a play. So you must be well versed with all areas. So now, what are the different expectations or what are the different question areas which we need to focus on? On your screen, you can see item number 1, which is subject matter. But before I get to the different question areas, allow me to also let you know this, that in section A, you should expect either 2 or 3 questions. So please take note of that. So section A, you will expect to find 2 or 3 questions. Now, the first question will test the area of subject matter. Teacher Teddy, take us to the next slide. So the first question will test the area of subject matter. And when we talk about subject matter, we should think of elements as you see on your screen. The speaker. We know that by the speaker, we mean the speaking voice or the character whose voice tells us the story. Under subject matter, expect questions related to addressee or the speaker's audience. Expect questions related to meaning stroke the message. And by meaning stroke the message, we mean what the poem or the passage is about. If it is a drama extract, we shall be expected to summarize the plot. So I want you to also pay attention to the language I am using. When I talk about drama, I am very specific that the subject matter of drama is referred to as plot. So when it comes to drama, you'll be asked to summarize the plot. Still, when we talk about subject matter, expect questions related to the title and its relevance to the extract that you have been provided with. Now, how is the title related to the extract? Or how can we explain that the title is related to the extract? You can think of how the title can bring out themes, to how the title brings out characterization, how the title contributes to the atmosphere, how the title contributes to the tone, how the title contributes to other literary elements. So we shall have a variety of questions ranging from the area of subject matter, and expect questions to focus on those different issues that I have talked about. Area number 2, and what you must note that we are most likely to have questions on subject matter surfacing in different papers, talked about in different ways. In one way, they can ask you to discuss the conflict in a particular extract, or they can tell you to discuss the experience in a particular extract. So it is simply a change of language. They are simply asking you to deal with the area of subject matter. So question area number 2, you should expect a question on judgment of character. So they expect that our teachers have taught us what characterization is. And by teaching us what characterization is, our teachers must have taught us character traits or behavior. They must have taught us the role or the contribution of a character to a particular story or play or poem. They must have taught us relationships. They must have taught us appeal. Now, by appeal, please take note that a character who is appealing is a character who is good, a character who we admire in the text. And in the text, we admire a character for their good personality. So when they ask you to discuss a character who appeals, think of a character with positive attributes in a text. Still, under judgment of character, we shall also have, or we should expect to find questions related to comparison and contrast of characters. So by comparison, they can give you an extract, maybe it is from a play, and they present 2 characters. So by presenting these 2 characters, they may ask you to compare them in terms of giving the similarities in their behavior, or to compare them giving also the differences in their character. So we should expect questions come of that nature when it comes to judgment of character. Question area number 3 is setting. Setting, as we have been taught by our teacher, refers to the places, the time, the weather, the society in a story. So you may find a question asking you to discuss the contribution of setting in general to the development of a text. But still, the examiner can be very specific to a particular aspect of the text. They can ask you, discuss the contribution of setting to the development of characterization in the extract, or discuss the contribution to the development of the atmosphere in this extract. So the examiner is very specific. They want you to show how the places, the time, the society contributes or brings out the emotional environment or the emotional effect the writer wants to create in the story. So you should take note of that area of setting. Next question area is theme, the area of themes. So here they may ask you to discuss the themes you have, or to analyze the themes you have identified in an extract you have been given. Now we should not make a mistake here. Many candidates usually confuse the themes they have studied in particular plays at school to be the only themes. You must know what the term theme means, so that if you know that a theme is a main idea or issue in a story, you will not stick to only the themes you have been taught to school, but you'll open up your mind to objectively analyze the issues in a particular extract. For instance, someone may not know that duty and responsibility is a theme because they only talked about violence in class. So my appeal to you is going to be that we make sure that we open up our minds when it comes to the area of analyzing themes in a particular extract. You must be objective and identify the issues the extract delivers, not the issues you studied in a particular text in class. If by coincidence the themes in the extract are also some of the themes you studied in class, that is well and good. But if you don't find the themes you studied in the text at school in the extract, please don't force them there. Deal with the issues the extract is giving you. Today, the world has evolved. You may read a drama extract where characters are using mobile phones, where characters are using computers like the one I'm using now, like the ones you're using. And then in that, you can see an issue of advanced technology emerging. So we need to appreciate the extracts as they come, not transferring knowledge from the novels we have read. Still, when we step away from the issue, from the question area of themes, we have language and style. So when we talk about language and style, now we need to be well versed with the different genres of literature we have dealt with. We know we have dealt with poetry and prose. And when you talk about poetry and prose and you mention language, someone will expect you to be aware of the issue of whether the language is formal or informal. So if it is formal, what is the register used by the writer in the extract? So when it comes to some novels and short stories may employ regional dialects. For example, if you have read if you have read A Walk in the Night, you may be familiar with the dialect used by the Black people in that text, vis-a-vis the dialect used by the white people in the text. So we must, when it comes to appreciation of language, we must be familiar with language use across the different genres of literature. Still, when it comes to style, we are thinking about the techniques. The question will ask you to appreciate how in a particular extract, whether drama, whether a novel, whether a passage, they will expect you to discuss how the writer uses techniques to bring out the message, or to break the message down, to bring out issues like characterization, feelings, themes, relationship, among others. So you'll be expected to appreciate how style or the different techniques bring out the various aspects of the message, including themes, characterization, the writer's intention, among other issues. The next question area, we have expression of feelings. So here we shall expect questions on tone, questions on mood, questions on atmosphere, questions on attitude, as well as your own feelings towards what you have read as a reader. So when it comes to expression of feelings, I want to also echo something, that these questions may not come in isolation. They may come relative to other aspects of the text. For instance, they could ask you to identify the speaker in a particular extract, a poem or passage, and then they ask you to discuss the tone of that speaker. So now you see, under expression of feelings, one, you must first identify the speaker, and two, discuss the speaker's tone. So when you find a question of that nature, don't be surprised, because questions in section A, some of them or most of them, you'll find that the examiners have chosen to assess two literary elements at the same time. Now, another question area is application of knowledge. That is, you'll find lessons, relevancy of that extract you are reading to the society. They'll ask you to give advice in case there's a particular problem or crisis in an extract, and you must give advice that is both practical and moral. By practical, I mean advice which is possible in the circumstances of the characters or in the situation of the characters. You should not give them advice that they cannot do. It is like having an extract about a child who is being mistreated by a relative. Some of you may have read a novel called Grief Child, where you have Adu and Goma. Now you advise Adu to kill Goma, which probably is not possible for that boy. Or you may advise Adu to simply run away from home and go and run elsewhere, but the boy is helpless. It may not work for him to run away from home. So the advice must be practical and possible for the character in their situation. They may also ask you to suggest your own personal opinions or your suggestions based on the evidence you have read in a particular extract. We shall also have questions on the writer's intention, but that will be basically for prose and poetry. By intention, they will be tasking you to find out from your reading of a particular poem or a particular prose piece why, or rather what you think the writer intends to achieve, or the message the writer intends to pass on to us, the general society, or his readers, by presenting for us a particular situation in the poem or in the passage. I want to temporarily end at that and return the mic to Teacher Teddy.
Thank you very much, Teacher Solomon. I hope that now we have a bit of information about section A. So I'll move on to section B. When we are done with paper 1, we'll take on some questions. So we're still on paper 1. Like Teacher Solomon said earlier, paper 1 will have 2 sections. The first section is about texts that you haven't seen, while the second section is about essay writing. And maybe Teacher Solomon, I want to beg that if you see my screen going off, you kind of start to share yours, because I can see power has gone off.
Okay.
So when section B will focus on the set books, and as it focuses on the set books, it is really about essays. So there'll be kind of 2 parts in that section. Part 1 will have the drama section or drama questions. So you'll have an either or. You'll have 2 questions on drama and you have to choose one. Here is when I appeal to you as students. If you haven't read at least 2 of the set books, please take off time to reread them and finish them so that you can answer this section well. So part 1 will be the drama questions. There'll be 2 and you choose 1. Then part 2 will have the novel or short stories questions. There'll also be 2 and you'll choose 1. So that means that you'll have 4 set essay items. And of course, if you have set essay items, that means that the answers that you write should be essays. Okay? So you must have information because your answer should be very rich so that it serves the intended purpose. And each of these questions, according to what is known, of course, this is subject to change because remember, you're the one starting. For now, each of those questions, we will score 15 scores. So for the drama, you choose one question that will be 15 scores, and then for the short stories or novel, you choose one that will also be 15 scores. So section B will really be out of 30 scores or 30 marks. So we're going to break down and see what bases of assessment are going to be looked at or considered in each section. Now, I've said each number will take 15 scores. Okay, Teacher Solomon, my battery is warning, so I'm going to stop sharing so that we do a smooth transition. And then you can share. I hope that's okay. I can't hear your voice.
Okay, so let me share. But there is a hand, I think, from Amka Classic. Maybe looks like.
Okay, as you prepare, as you share. Yes, Amka, please ask your question. Amka Classic.
Probably they need to be given permission to open the mic.
Okay. Hi.
Yes, Madam, I was kindly asking about the drama assessment. Yes, Madam, because according, let me say to a book, for example, if I'm using any of my set book as, let me say Richard, I faced upon a question which was asking for one of the external factors that caused to Richard's downfall.
One of the external factors to what? I need to know the whole scenario
The
before
whole
I give an
scenario,
answer to that.
let me first try to get it. Madam, can I read it?
Yes, please.
Many dramatists explore the complex causes of human suffering and downfall, suggesting that a character's fate rarely stems from a single source. While personal flaws can drive poor choices, external forces such as predetermined destiny, supernatural influence, may also shape the course of their lives. These elements work together to rise through provoking questions about responsibility, control, and the forces that govern our existence. Choose a protagonist from one drama text you have studied. Discuss how their suffering or fall is influenced by both their own character weakness and at least one external factor force. Use specific details from the text to illustrate your point.
Okay, good question. That scenario has actually already given you which external forces you can actually use. Now, external forces in that sense are looking at things that are not the traits of the character, right?
Yes.
So you look
Yes.
out for those things that are not the traits of the character that actually lead to their
Their
downfall.
downfall.
Okay, so if it is fate, depending on the book that you're doing, if you're doing Oedipus, you can look at fate. If you're doing Richard III, then you also still have to look for those external factors that are not Richard's traits,
Yes.
that actually lead to the downfall. And they've only asked for one, so that
Madam,
should
like,
be something that is doable.
Madam, for example, which external force can I use?
For Richard,
For Richard, because I'm using Richard.
okay. Teacher Solomon will give us an answer to that as and maybe that will come after I have dealt with section B. So your question is being put on
It's okay.
hold for now.
It's okay, madam. It's okay.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, so back to what I was saying. So essay part will be out of 30, 15 marks for each number. Teacher Solomon, please take us to the next slide. Hmm.
Is that the slide you need, Teacher Teddy?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Mr. Kaziba, I hope you're still on because I'm taking this gadget off so that there's another Teddy Najemba that I request to be made co-host so that I can switch gadgets. Teacher Solomon, can I request that you look for the other Teddy Najemba and you make me co-host? Because I
Okay.
am going off any minute now. Okay, let me continue as it's being worked out. So we're going to start with drama. What basis of assessment, what things are your examiners going to look out for when they are marking or scoring your work? And the first one is task and text interpretation. So if you get an essay question, ideally, your question or your task will tell you using any of the books that you have studied in class. Answer this question. So you should be able to indicate what title of text you're going to use. Are you using A Doll's House? Are you using The Country Wife? Are you using Oedipus the King? Are you using Richard III? So you need to tell us which book you're going to use as you start your essay in your introduction. And then you tell us the playwright as well. So is it Shakespeare? Is it Anton? Is it Sophocles? Whatever, depending on the book that you have chosen. And then you need to give a general overview of the text. Here, I don't mean that you tell us what the book is about. You get the gist. The most important thing is someone critiquing leaders' ambition for power, That's if you're looking at Richard III, that overambition that makes someone kill everyone in their path so that they achieve their goal is Teacher Solomon, you've gone off. Is someone looking at okay, I hope you can hear me. So, you give a general overview of the book, and then you give like an introduction to the task, an overview to the task. If it is a character question, you can tell us something about the character. If it is a setting question, what different types of setting do we have? Teacher Solomon has already talked about time setting, historical setting, depending on the book. You can look at physical setting and then social setting. If it is a thematic question, what are you going to tell us about the themes? So in your introduction, you should be able to give us the title you're going to look at, who the playwright is, give a general overview of the book, and then you give an interpretation of the task that you have at hand. Then another thing that will be looked for is to do with format and coherence. Any normal essay is supposed to have an introduction. It's supposed to have a body that has points that you're discussing and analyzing and giving us your personal opinion about. Because it's an essay and we are in A level, usually about 8 to 12 points can be discussed depending on the question. And then, of course, you must have a conclusion. And a good conclusion has some personal opinion in it. So your examiners will be also looking out for the format and coherence of your essay. Then they'll also look out for evaluation. Are you actually evaluating? Are you analyzing well the question? And what shows that you're actually evaluating is that you must have appropriate illustrations. If you give examples, you can't focus on just one thing. The examples you give should cut across from the start of the play to the end of the play. So if in this point, if you've chosen Richard III, for example, if in this point you're giving maybe an example of Clarence, then probably in the next point you look for a part with Buckingham, you look for a part with Hastings, and then probably something towards the end, maybe the war, things like that. So your illustration should be appropriate and they should cut across. And as you write your paragraphs, there should be personal opinion that is in line with the writer's opinion. So even if you like Richard, you can't talk about it because the Shakespeare did not mean us to like Richard. So it might be your personal opinion, but it won't be correct. So you need to have personal opinion in line with the writer's opinion. Then proficiency and register is another thing that will be considered when evaluating, when scoring you. And here we are looking at, are you correct in what you're saying? Are you clear in what you're saying? Do you use words that apply to that genre? Words like soliloquy, you have a protagonist, antagonist, those are words that are used in drama. So they should be there. The kind of language that you use should be there. Then your creativity and authenticity is also very important and it will be used to award you marks in the essay. You should have a variety of sentence structures. So that means you have, simple sentences, compound sentences, complex sentences, etc. You should avoid monotony. Your paragraph shouldn't start the same way. So you can't keep saying, Oedipus is this, Oedipus is that, Oedipus, that monotony. You have to use the English that you know to make your essay interesting and flow. Then you must have quotations. That is part of creativity and authenticity. What shows that you actually know the book that you're talking about, that you've analyzed it. So those quotes must be there. And like I've said before, you should have a variety of examples. That is what makes your essay appealing or authentic. So those 5, like I've said before, each question will have about 15 marks. So those 5 will be the basis of assessment, and each will take 3 scores to give you the 15. So you'll find that in some of your papers, what is in brackets, the short forms, are the codes that you'll find in your mock papers for those who haven't yet already done or started. So that is for the drama section. I'll also move on to the novel and short story. Remember I said in section B, it's in 2 parts. You have the drama, 2 questions, and then the novel, 2 questions. So for the novel, we'll also have bases of assessment. They are almost the same, but the codes will kind of differ. The first one is structure and organization. As they mark your essay, they'll be looking at how you have structured it. Do you have an introduction? Do you have a body? Do you have a conclusion? And then when it comes to the body, your point should be in the first sentence. Your paragraph should have explanation. You should have examples. You should have quotations. You should have an opinion, something that comes from you and is not something that you have probably heard from your teacher. So if you're saying that Richard is manipulative, or if you're saying that, for those who have read The Snake Farmers, Sekade is deceitful, that is something that you could have discussed or heard from your friends in class. But when you say that someone is deceitful, is it a likable trait? Do you think that because he represents leaders, that is a trait that you look down on amongst leaders and things like that? So you should have an opinion on the various points you will be discussing, and that will be in looked at in the structure and organization of your essay. Then another thing that will be used to score your essay is your content and relevance. Remember, you have a task before you. So when you're answering, is your essay exhaustive? Does it cover the task very well? So your content should be able to answer the task. And then they'll also look out for your analysis and critical thinking. When you give your judgment on things, your personal opinion, is it sound? Are you critical about what you are discussing? Then the language and presentation will also be very important. So your language should be accurate. When you talk about the novel, there are things that we expect to see. Description, point of view in terms of first narrator, second narrator, omniscient narrator. There is that language that's specific to the novel. Are you discursive in your essay, in your presentation? Then you shouldn't be monotonous in your essay. So look for those words, furthermore, in addition to, similarly. You should have those words to start your paragraph so that you don't sound monotonous. And then, of course, sentence structures should vary, like I've said in the drama section. Your tense should be on point because in literature, we are dealing with a living subject. So when we are writing, most of what we write is in the present tense. So you must make sure that your presentation is spot on because you're doing literature in English. So things like tense, punctuation are going to be awarded marks. If you have many mistakes, there are marks that you will lose. Then the final basis for the novel is in originality of presentation. And this is where you look at quotations. Can you actually pick a line from the text and use it well in your essay to explain what you're talking about? Your examples should cut across the novel or novella that you're doing. Your argument should be original. Even the way you express yourself should be different. So those 5 things still are the basis of evaluation that will be used to give you the out of 15 that we talked about. So for each of these, you'll be working out of 3 for now. But like I've said, this can change. Okay? So as you write your essays for both drama and the novel, please keep these things in mind so that you organize your essay well. You have your points, especially in the first sentence. You have explained, your opinion is there. You have a quotation here and there. So you don't have to quote for each point, but at least you make sure you have some quotations. You have examples that cut across the book. And I believe that a good essay should be about 4 pages for it to be discursive. So you try as much as possible to write and answer the task rather, very well. We shall look at an example of a possible question, but your teachers have been giving you questions, and I believe some of you have even seen the sample papers that were sent by UNEB so that we prepare better for our UNEB exam. So those are the bases that you can try and focus on as you write from now on. Okay. Teacher Solomon, do you want to go to the next slide? Okay. So for paper 1, before I move on to something else, I want to leave this assignment with you because I know that once you expose yourselves to these things, there's no way you'll fail section B. Okay? For each of the books that you have studied in class, it would be good if, you discuss with your friends in groups or in your literature class, depending on how big it is, so that you get better and you have these things off your fingertips. So you're going to select any book and then focus on some of these things. You analyze the title and determine its suitability. You examine the plot. You will discuss the setting and assess its contribution. Yes, please.
Someone asks here if we give conclusions in the novel part. I've seen that in the message section.
Okay, sorry about that. Yes, we do give conclusions. Any essay, to be a good essay, should have an introduction, it should have the body part, and it must have a conclusion. And in that conclusion, you're rounding up your essay, but your opinion is very critical as you round up your essay. Okay? So what was I? So you're going to select any book and run through these things in a group, in a discussion. It will help you for any book that you have done. You can even decide that we'll do one novel on it, on the questions, and then we'll do one play on the questions. So you examine the plot, you discuss the setting and how this setting contributes to your understanding of the play. So if you're going to do place setting, physical setting, like in Richard III, and you're talking about the tower, when we talk about the tower, does it bring out Richard's character? Does it create a particular mood in the book? Does it bring out themes of violence and malice and things? So setting should be able to enhance your understanding of the book. Then identify the type of characters that you have. Are you looking at a main character? Are you looking at a protagonist? Do you have group characters? Are they blacks? Are they whites? If you're looking at A Walk in the Night, and things like that. So identify the characters, look at their traits, look at their role, look at their relationships, look at, are they admirable or not, or dislikable, so that then you can actually answer any question on character. Then, Teacher Solomon, the next one. You will also explain the themes and how they are developed in each of the books that you decide to do. So it's not just about looking at the themes. How are these themes brought out? Do they actually use techniques to bring them out? Do they use characters to bring them out? Do they use the setting to bring them out? etc. So look at the themes and how they are developed. Then discuss the effective use of the techniques, that is language and style. Okay, so look at, you should be able to know now that there are certain techniques that are dramatic techniques. They can't be narrative techniques. So for example, you can't talk about soliloquy in the novel and short story. You can't talk about monologue in the novel and short story. But you can talk about irony in both of them. You can talk about contrast. You can talk about imagery. You know, there are those that cut across. Okay, so you need to know those techniques in the books that you will choose. And then here I missed out things to do with lessons. You need to know the lessons that you learn from each of those books that you decide to choose, so that when a question comes on lessons, it's easy for you to answer it and be discussive about it and give your opinion, because you already have your points. So now it's a matter of writing the right way. And then, of course, the relevance question. For each of the books that you're doing, it will be good for you to know how relevant they are to the Ugandan situation. And you know, nowadays in Uganda, it looks like some of these books are really, really relevant. Every day we wake up, there's something new that is happening in our society. So books like The Snake Farmers, books like A Walk in the Night, Richard III, all those should be making a lot of sense for us. Devil on the Cross. Actually, recently, I think I saw Honorable, the one of Mukono, the lady, talking about Devil on the Cross, and I'm like, okay, literature is all around us. There's a lot of relevance of it to our society. So the books that you do, if you go through these questions that I have put for you, they're general, they don't have any scenario, but once you go through these aspects, then you should be good to go to answer section B and answer it well. Okay, so I think that's it for section B. I don't know if there are any questions, Teacher Solomon. Or we can continue.
Someone on this platform, I think it is well, I can leave out the name, but someone seems to have concerns about the text. I think he mentioned tests of the D'Urbervilles. Yes, what about books like tests which do not have live examples? And he seems to be concerned about the fact that you cannot easily pick particular examples from the Ugandan community, which are connected to the life of Tess, to the life of Alec, to the life of Angel Clare. Issues, maybe he cannot ably connect to live illustrations of issues of love, issues of abuse, issues of poverty, issues of social class. I think maybe we need to give him a context, some examples from the Ugandan community, because it looks like it's his concern. Back to you, Teacher
Okay,
Ted.
thank you. I hope whoever asked that question has even realized that already you are trying to give similarities. Because if we're talking about social class in TESS, we have that all around us. We have people who don't want their children to marry particular tribes or people who, come from certain societies. Issues to do with poverty, all that is around us. And maybe we'll have just to look for specific examples, and I'll probably do that in the last minutes of this session. Teacher Solomon, there's a question I asked you to answer before. I don't know if you want to take that on now before we move on.
Yeah, let me address that. The person who asked that question wanted to know which external factor influences the downfall of Richard. I don't know if that is a question, Teacher Ted, you can help me remember.
Yes, it is.
Okay, and then he was asking how that external factor leads to Richard's downfall. Now, when you get to the text, there's a character called Margaret, the queen, and we know that Queen Margaret curses characters, and among the characters she curses is Richard. We know that Margaret's curse, if we trace the plot, somehow, if you look at the flow of events, Margaret's curse is connected to the way Richard ends in the text. For how? Let's examine Margaret's curse. First of all, when we get to the text, we can paraphrase the fact that she says the house of York will destroy itself, and we know that Richard belongs to the house of York. So how does it happen? We know that Richard betrays and also engineers the deaths of his brothers, that is King Edward, as well as George of Clarence, and later the sons of the king. We also see later on that he also turns against Buckingham and destroys him. So how does this lead to Richard's downfall? We see that because Richard has eliminated every other character that potentially could have been on his side, um, Richard loses characters who should have been allies, for instance, Buckingham, and eliminating all these people we have talked about leaves Richard isolated. So it is no wonder that he is defeated by Richmond in the final battle. Next, we can also see that when we examine Margaret's curse, Margaret says that Elizabeth will lose her children and power. And of course, we see that Richard is connected to Elizabeth because he is among the children. So we see that. So sorry. Margaret says that. Let me check in the text here. Elizabeth will lose her children and power. So when we go on further, we see that Richard kills the princes who are Elizabeth's sons. But then later on, you see that the lady chooses to go to Richmond and she agrees to marry her daughter to him. Then Richmond gains legitimacy to overthrow Richard. So another factor, let me check the text here. Let me try to open the page. Of course, when you trace the curse, she alludes to the fact that Richard's end will be associated with facing hatred and loneliness. And we know that by the end, Richard has been abandoned because he has betrayed everyone. Even his own army deserts him. So that contributes to his defeat. So when you talk about the external factors, you can think of the curse. Back to you, teacher.
Okay. Thank
Teacher
you very
Teki.
much. Okay.
Someone is maybe before I get back to you, someone is asking if all the books are optional or there are some which are compulsory. Maybe Teacher Teddy, you can talk about that.
There's no compulsory book. Okay. So the question will just ask using any book that you have studied. So feel free to look at any book that is on the NCDC guidelines. Okay. I don't know if there's any other question before we continue.
I don't see any for now in the chat box. Probably some
Okay.
people have raised their hands.
Maybe before they put up their hands, so that I get done with paper one. The person who asked about Tess. Tess presents gender-based violence. We have a lot of that in Uganda. We have women who are beaten. And because we live in a patrilineal society, the novel makes a lot of sense to us. And, when you read the book, Tess is blamed for being assaulted by a leg and rejected by her husband. The same thing happens in our society. Usually you'll find someone telling the women that maybe it's because of what you did that you were beaten and things like that. And the gender-based violence, much as Tess is about a woman, in Uganda we have men who are facing violence. Then actually I think at some point there's a time that someone said that gender-based violence is a national crisis in Uganda. And indeed it is, because we have lots of women and girls who are domestic violence victims or survivors. Then the thing to do with the class, social class and poverty, that is also very evident in Uganda. Look at our rural areas and see the poverty that we are dealing with. When you look at the women in our society, usually many of them are agricultural labor force, or they're just seated at home. They're not working. So Tessie's life as a field worker exposes that also in Uganda. Then she's treated as disposable labor by her employers, and that is a normal thing in Uganda. We have people who are fired without notice from their jobs. These things are happening all around us, and it happens a lot to women. Then the double standards or hypocrisy in the novel is actually also common. We have Tess in the book being shamed for her past, while Alec faces no consequences at all. Ugandan women go through the same thing. Which particular
If
example
a girl
can I
is raped, or if a girl is defiled, probably most of our people here in Uganda put the blame on her. Probably they could associate it with her dressing. Probably they could say, why were you walking at such a time? Why were you talking to such a person? So they don't put the blame on the man, but they look at the girl as the victim, and then the oppressor simply walks away scot-free, like most men have done in Uganda. Back to you, Teacher Teddy.
Okay, thank you. Then we have those harmful traditions, which Tess is a victim of. We have the same practices here in Uganda: early marriage, widow inheritance. All those are harmful norms that you can relate. So you
Teacher
can use
Teddy,
any. Yes, please.
there are some other questions. I don't know. Looks like many are coming in.
Okay, for now, let's put them on hold and first look at paper 2. Otherwise, we might run out of time. We're going to come back to them.
So maybe they can keep. I see
Keep them.
someone from Maracha and then Kenzie Claire. Maybe they can type the questions. I'm going to be noting them down here. You respond, Teacher Teddy, at the end.
Okay, thank you. So, we've kind of dealt with paper 1. Now, paper 2 is really about literary creation. And here we are looking at creation and production of original works. So you should be able to come up with your own short story or your own one-act play. And they give you a scenario. Usually there are 3 from what we've noted. There are usually 3. One could be a scenario that is going to tell you to write on a particular theme. And they can even focus you and tell you write a one-act play on the theme of betrayal. Then the other is a scenario on a subject. So they paint this picture for you about corruption that is going on in the society, and they give you some examples, maybe embezzlement, maybe nepotism, etc. And they create a situation where you're seeing these things, and they tell you to write on it. This could be an open question. Either you're writing a play or you're writing a novel, a short story rather. Then they could give you a scenario where you're supposed to write on a particular title. So they give you a scenario, and then in your task they tell you write maybe a short story entitled this kind of thing. And then you have to actually do the writing. So for paper 2, you'll have 3 questions, but you're supposed to choose 1. Now, when you choose 1, it can be on a subject, it could be on a title, it could be on a theme, but your task should guide you on what to write. You might have a task that is specific. Write a 1-act play on this. Write a short story on this, or just create something. So if it's an open one, it is up to you to decide. But from experience, it looks like writing a play is much easier to do than the short story. But we all learn ourselves. So if you're good at writing short stories, please go ahead and write the short story. If you're good at writing the play, please go ahead and write the play. But it is important to note that you must write and complete whatever you're talking about. So you must give your story, your plot, in terms of introduce, then you build it up to the climax, and then finally it is resolved. So please don't write things that are going to leave people in suspense. Your story should be complete. Okay, Teacher Solomon, the next.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. You've gone back. I need you to go ahead. So, if you're going to create, there are certain things that are expected of you. Now, like I've said, you have 3 scenarios, but you're supposed to choose 1. The minute you choose 1, it's going to be very important for you to interpret the scenario. So this is part of planning. So the very first part of what you're going to do is to interpret the scenario. You can even take about an hour to do this so that you understand everything properly. And when you begin to write, things flow. So you can write in 2 hours. While if you've planned, you'll see that things will move smoothly. So you'll have to interpret your scenario. If they are talking about writing on the theme of crime, that doesn't mean that you're only going to write about crime. Inside that, you can have those little themes that will come out. Maybe violence, maybe betrayal, deceit. So you have a combination of very many things that will help you build your play or your short story. Please do your planning in an hour. Know what kind of story you're going to write. If it's a play, what kind of play? If the question is sad, are you going to make it satirical, where you'll include some humor, or you're going to keep it as a tragedy? So know what kind of or type of play you're going to write. If it is a short story, is it going to be comic? Are you going to, what kind of techniques are you going to use? If it's a play, are you going to have some aside, some soliloquy? If it's a novel, do you have description, contrast? Description helps you to build your paragraphs even better, vivid description, so that someone can see what you're talking about. Now, all this can happen as you are planning. Which characters are you going to have in your story? Because these are the ones who are going to bring out your message properly. Are they characters that we are going to pity? Are they characters that we are going to laugh with or about? So you plan and know what themes, what plot do I have, what mood am I creating, what characters do I have, where are they, what setting. Sometimes a question will even determine the kind of setting for you. But all this comes in your interpretation or from your interpretation of the scenario. So please take off time to plan. You can plan for an hour. You have enough time. And then after you have finished your planning, you begin to write. But please make sure that whatever you write is kind of relevant. There are lessons to pick. It might be tricky for you to write science fiction, for example, in a play. But if you're the kind of person who likes fantasy, then you can write a short story and things like that. So determine what you're good at, but that only comes with practice. And then, of course, when you're in the actual paper, planning will help you write a good short story or a good play. So demonstrate knowledge of those aspects of literature that we have already talked about. Okay, so those are our expectations. What else do we need? Teacher Solomon? No, we'll come back to that. Let's move on. Again, move on. Okay, yes, there. So like we have said, the scenario that will be set may focus on one of those three. So one number will focus you on a theme, another number will focus you on title, another number will focus you on a subject that you need to create awareness about. Please keep your creativity and originality at the forefront. You should be able to create, use all those techniques that you have studied in class, use the different types of genres that you've studied in class. Are you going to write a tragicomedy, a tragedy, a comedy, a satire? So be creative. And like I've said, you start off and write to completion. So your conflict must come in at the start. Now on your right there, you'll see a plot structure. Because we think that at your level, the best thing to do is to make a linear plot. It will be easier for you to write on that instead of having a book that goes back and forth. So this is what we recommend your plot structure to be like. You expose us to your conflict. So are you in your exposition, you're giving us the setting, you're giving us the conflict, you're introducing us to characters. So generally, we are beginning to feel your plot, your story, and then you begin to make it rise. You're growing your conflict. You can bring in more characters. The themes are beginning to come out properly. So you rise your action until eventually you have a climax. It could be people fighting or disagreeing, or someone who has a turning point and realizes that, oh, what I thought all along is not exactly what it is, or someone who has been bad at the start and is now doing a 360 and becoming a good character because, maybe something happens at that point. So you have a climax, and then you have the falling action where things are resolved, and eventually the whole conflict is sorted out. So try as much as possible to have that linear plot because it's the easiest thing to write about. So try not to move your whatever you create back and forth. Don't put so many flashbacks, but you can have them. You can use reminiscence instead of flashbacks if you're going to do plays. So you try to have a plot that just keeps on moving until the very end, so that you don't confuse yourselves and so that you can write well for your level. Okay. We can move on. Okay, so here is a sample question for you that I want you to think about and maybe generate a few ideas on. It could be after this discussion at school so that you have an idea. So in your home area, cases of child crime or juvenile delinquency, such as theft and defilement, have risen by almost 30% in the recent years. Society blames this on various aspects like poor parenting and peer pressure, which the children dispute. You are tasked to sensitize the community on these issues and more through a play. Write a one-act play depicting the theme of crime, showing how the community can find common ground and sort themselves. Use about 5 to 6 pages, include at least 4 characters, and use dramatic techniques. So you'll have scenarios that are kind of detailed. Just make sure that you try as much as possible to do all that the detail requires of you. Okay? So here they've given you a theme. Like I've said, you can create as others, but make sure that the crime is pronounced. It comes out properly. And then, of course, they're talking about juvenile delinquency. So you should have children among your characters. Then they're talking about a society. So you could have characters who are group characters, maybe the elders or parents at a parents' meeting or something. So the scenario should help you build and create whatever art you need to, whether it's a play or a short story. Okay, so I hope I've tried to break down. You can use about 5 to 6 pages. Please remember that always when you're creating, you must have a title. You must write your name as the author because it is your creation. And then if it's a play, you must have a character list or a cast. Then plays have, yes, they are telling you one act, but you decide, is it going to have many scenes? Is it just going to be one act that is continuous up to the end? If it's novels, you know that you must have. If it's a short story, either you're going to do a block or you can even have chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and you stop it at that. You can have between 5 to 6 pages. If you can write 7, it is well, but you must make sure that your story is flowing. So all those things that you've been seeing in the books you've been critiquing, that are aspects of drama or aspects of the novel, please use them, okay? Use them and create your own work of art. Remember earlier I said your creativity and originality is very important so that you earn good marks. Okay, Teacher Solomon? Teacher Solomon, the next one should
Yes.
really be a question on the next slide.
I beg your pardon?
Please go to the next slide. Okay, so this is just a question that is asking you to order the steps that we have looked at. Planning the plot and characters, reviewing the message, style and setting, writing the one-act play or short story, and then interpreting the scenario correctly. If we were to order these from what we should begin with first up to the last thing, how would the order be? The answer should be on the next slide. Okay, so you have to begin by interpreting the scenario correctly. This one we have looked at. You plan your plot and characters and themes, all that planning that we have talked about. Then you do the actual writing, but it just doesn't stop at doing the actual writing. You should read through what you have written. Review so that you actually can tell, is the message that I want there? Have I actually looked at the title properly and brought it out? If it is a theme question, is the major theme coming out clearly? If it's a subject question, is a subject I want to sensitize people on coming out clearly? So we should all review what we have written, and we must make sure we have used correct English. Okay, so this is the creative process that ideally you should take. So these are the things that we should look at when we are looking at paper 2. And to be able to
Teacher Peggy,
succeed. Yes, please.
there is a quick one here.
Mm,
Someone has asked if it is a must to include characters at the start of the play.
yes, please. It is a must, because your characters are the people who are going to tell your story if it or expose your conflict, right? So if it is a play, you're probably going to have stage directions where you'll talk about the setting, and then you'll say, maybe on stage is an old man called so and so. What is he wearing? He's wearing ragged clothes, or he's a rich gangster or something like that. So the characters are the people who are important to your story. They must be there. Even in the novel, they're the people that we need for your story to have life. Okay. So as we conclude what's in your papers, so that we have a look at briefly at maybe a poem for section A. Allow me to say, Teacher Solo, the second last slide, I think.
Okay. The second last slide, that one? Oh, this one?
Yes, thank you. So finally, as we wind up on the papers, before we now do something active. So to succeed, remember that paper 1 requires sharp eyes for analysis, while paper 2 requires a structured imagination. You should be able to imagine. Let your mind run wild so that you create something new. And like Ngugi wa Thiong'o said, literature is where I go to explore the highest and lowest places in human society. So we should be able to make him proud as we do our paper 2. Our imagination should be that wild, the highest and lowest places in human society. So I would like now to move to something more practical, unless there's a burning question.
The questions are very, very many. I don't know.
Then we might not do the practical bit. Let's first answer questions, I think.
Okay. Question number 1. What is the difference between soliloquy and monologue?
Okay, I'll answer that immediately. Like the word soliloquy, it comes from solo, right? Alone. So soliloquy, someone is alone on stage and then they're saying words. So like if you read Richard III, when he tells us some of his plans, he's the only one on stage. He's the only one speaking. That becomes a soliloquy. While for a monologue, there are other people on stage, and it's like they've been talking, but someone speaks for a very long time. Either they're explaining the plot, or we are telling something about their character, or they're just giving us an opinion and creating a particular mood. So you have many people on stage, but one of them speaks for a long time. That is monologue. I hope I have created that difference. Okay.
Question 2. Can we choose Can we choose a text? But I think this one is going to be for the practical bit. Someone said, can we choose a text and go through together as we need to know how to answer? I think that will be sorted.
Hmm.
How to generate a short story based on a particular theme. I think that one we are going to respond when it comes to the practical bit. How do I attempt the relevancy of a title to a novel or a play?
The practical bit, I think, will also bring that out.
Okay.
Yes, should.
Then this one was someone was asking us to like refer to a number of set book in our reference. Maybe we apologize that we haven't tapped into those other texts, but I hope we have been exhaustive in the text that we have talked about. Then in case you make a mistake in personal opinion, can it work? So the question was kind of vague. I don't know if you have understood it, Teacher Teddy.
Mm, I hope I've understood it. What I've understood that, for example, if they ask about a character that is likable, and then I give maybe Opobo in the Snake Farmers, right? Of course, Opobo has some strengths, especially at the start of the play, but eventually he becomes a bad character when he goes ahead, or he decides to go ahead with Sekade's plan. Now, if I decide that I like him, then I've kind of made a mistake in personal opinion.
Opinion? Okay.
Yes, it doesn't mean that I am going to get a 0, but my marks will be low because
Okay.
Yusuf Serunkuma, for example, does not want us to really like Opobo. Instead, he wants us to criticize him for not standing his ground and probably refusing to be as greedy as Sekade, or as greedy as Sekade wants him to be. So I might get marks on a bit of analysis and the very first traits that he exhibits, his generosity, his bit of caring and things like that. But after that, I might not get good scores.
Okay,
So,
so we also have some others, very many. So how can I do a question on relevancy?
okay. Questions to do with relevance. Let me put this simply. When they ask you about relevance, they are asking you what is similar between your society and the book. Your society and the book. Now, when you're looking at things that are similar, you could have characters that are similar, right? So you have a Tess in your society, or you have a Michael Adonis in your society, someone who's vindictive, vengeful, racist and things like that. So you could have characters that are similar. You could have events that are similar. Maybe in a book, there's a that is what the moon also sets pregnancy in girls. So
We
you
can talk
look at
about the
that for
example
affairs.
of Professor Akpanu who wants to sleep with his student.
So
It can also relate to our society in universities, lecturers sleeping with girls.
good. So you can look at characters that are similar. You can look for events that are similar. Then you can also look for themes that are similar. Do you have betrayal in the book? What about in your society? Have we known people to betray others? Do you have immorality as a theme? What about in the in your society? Do you have manipulation, oppression in the book? What about in your society? So when you're dealing with relevance, you have to show which of these are you picking your relevance from. Are you getting a similar character, similar event, or similar themes? And then you give an example from the book and relate that example to your society. Where you
Okay.
can even give specific examples from your society. So if, for example, you have maybe adultery in a play or a novel, what about your society? You can talk about people who have had DNA of their children and then they find out that their children are not theirs. That is evidence of adultery. So all when you're looking at a relevance question, that is what you're supposed to be looking at. Those similarities. I
Okay.
hope that question.
Someone asks, is Oedipus to blame for what happens to him?
The
Mm,
Oedipus question.
mm,
Generally,
mm,
on the whole, Oedipus is not to blame. His
mm,
life is determined. That is why we talk about fate in that book. His life is
mm,
determined even before his birth. So
mm,
really, for the most part, the gods are to blame because, they let him live even after his parents tried as much as possible to do away with him. That is also wrong, but for the most part, it is the gods, fate, that is to blame because even before he knows that he's going to exist, really, his life has been predetermined. So for most part of that essay, really, you'd be talking about fate. Okay, it's not so much in personal flaws, but the flaws also contribute to his plight.
okay.
It can go two ways, but
Mm,
for the most part, it is fate that is to blame.
okay. Then someone wants us to talk about the distribution of scores in paper one, like across the sections, with the number of scores in section A, and then number of scores in section B, and then the total for the whole paper.
Hmm. Like I said, these scores are not definite. I don't want you to take what I'm saying for gospel truth. Then I also said that for the essay parts, that the wish is to have each essay out of 15. That is the wish for now, which will make
Mm,
section B out of 30. But the
mm,
scores for section A will depend. Teacher Solomon said earlier that you'll either have 2 or 3 questions. Now, if you have 2 questions, the scores will be different. If you have 3 questions, the scores will also be different. So I don't want you to cram that this is going to be what the paper is out of.
mm,
Okay. If there are 2 scores, rather, if there are 2 questions, that is a different mark. If there are 3 questions, that is also a different mark. But for most part, it looks like people want to work with the figure 3. So
mm,
depending, it can be out of 6, out of 9.
mm.
But that is just something that is being put forward. We don't really know if it will be passed.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so I think these other questions are the distribution of scores, you've talked about it. How to phrase points, we are going to talk about it in the practical section of this discussion. How many words should one, maybe you need to respond to this one. How many words should a one-act play have?
No one is going to tell you the number of words, but I've said 5 to 6 pages is good enough. Okay, whether it's for the play or for the novel, about 5 to 6 pages or 7 at most.
So
Mm.
for the short story, do you have to complete the story, or you are even allowed to leave the readers in suspense?
I think I answered that before and said, please don't leave anyone in suspense. Introduce your conflict, take it to a climax, resolve it. Okay, so that there's something to pick from your book. Remember, it's a short story, it's not a novel. Okay, so please follow that plot structure that we talked about. Introduce your conflict, rise it to the climax, resolve it, and don't leave any suspense. Otherwise, you
Okay.
might not answer the question if you leave people in suspense.
So I think that's the end of the questions that I noted so far, but some other questions have come in. However, somebody seems to have a very urgent issue with what stream of consciousness means as a narrative technique in novels.
Okay, stream of consciousness is the thoughts of the reader, rather the thoughts of the character. So if you know how we talk about the omniscient narrator, who gets into people's brains and then can tell that someone is thinking, how they dislike this person, how they betrayed them in their mind. They are not speaking, but it is in their mind. It is like intra conflict inside someone's mind, those thoughts that are running through, that is stream of consciousness. Okay, so whatever thoughts a person has in their mind in the novel is stream of consciousness. It's something that helps you identify omniscient narrator as well, because the omniscient narrator can get into people's minds and then can go to different places at the same time. I think I've answered that one.
Maybe to add on that, I don't know if he has read the novel Tales of the D'Urberville, but I can give him some examples. If he can go, if he has read the novel Tales of the D'Urbervilles, he can refer to that chapter where we have Tess assaulted. Um, assaulted by Alec at the chase as they're coming back from I think there's a township it should be, and they're returning to Trantridge. So that after that incident, there's a part where the writer notes that uh, goes into Tessie's thoughts, and he writes, why had she not stayed to nurse her mother as she had intended doing? Why had she let herself be urged out of it by Joan? It was nobody's fault but her own, nobody's. She had a strange feeling of not being herself. She was not Tess Durbeyfield anymore. So the writer takes us into Tessie's internal self and what she's thinking and what she is feeling. So he can refer to such examples like that one in the novel Tales of the D'Urbervilles, where the writer takes us into the internal feelings and thoughts of Tess, if he wants to better understand what stream of consciousness means. Teacher Ted, there are so many questions. I don't know if we should first hold on to respond to them and then first go to the other bit of the discussion, or do we need to respond to them immediately?
I think because some of our questions might actually be answered in the discussion, we could first do something, even if it's for a short time. Then we will get back to the questions.
Okay, thank you. So we shall get back to the questions. We shall respond as time will allow. But we want to continue to appreciate all the members for being around up to this time. We are going to share a sample of paper 1, section A, extract, and then sample essay question. And if time allows, we shall also briefly or elaborately, depending on how much time we shall have, talk about illustrating what? How to present a script for a play or even the novel. We shall do something about it if time is our best ally. So on your screens, I have shared a poem called Jolly Good Boss. For majority of you, it could be a familiar poem. For a few, it could be the first time, but if it is familiar, then I am glad that we are going to use an extract, which is very familiar for everyone. Besides, we also have a passage from a novel called In the Fog of the Season's End by Alex Laguma. So I want to believe that some of us have read that novel. That's where we have got our extract. I hope that by the end of this discussion, we shall have benefited. So, we want now this session to be more open. We want even participants out there to be involved. Those whose hands are up, we apologize that we cannot select you for now. Maybe after we have presented, we shall be able to respond to the hands that have been raised. I am going to request someone to recite for us this poem. There is someone here called Arena Shine. Maybe I can request him or her to recite for us that poem called Jolly Good Boss. Then we proceed. Arena Shine, please unmute your mic and recite for us. Yeah, probably she could have issues. Any volunteer who wants to recite for us the poem Jolly Good Boss? Maybe people should first lower their hands. Okay, Nathan, recite for us the poem. I see your hand is continuously up.
Okay, I'm asking Nathan to unmute. I don't know. Okay.
He has.
Okay. Okay. I think we are going to read the poem together, which
Okay.
goes, Jolly Good Boss. So it starts. He is a jolly good boss, sits behind a shiny mahogany desk, dreamy and contented like an overfed python that has just swallowed a bearded goat. Then the second paragraph, stanza, sorry. He is a good-natured fellow, always petting and ramps of secretaries in tight skirts, which say, marry me if you dare. Laughs absent, mindedly, and sinks back into their oblivion. Then the third stanza. He is an industrious head, gets dog tired early in the morning from signing a few papers, whose contents he is mildly aware of, and leaves for lunch and for the day at 11:30 a.m. He is a humorous chap, jokes about how he is underpaid and overworked. I'm not seeing the next words. Maybe you can scroll.
No, I have scrolled. Probably it could be a network issue that side, but I have scrolled to the next words. I don't know if we have appeared on your screen.
No, they haven't. I'm waiting.
Okay, let me
Because I can see.
No.
let me
Oh,
reshare.
Okay.
Do you see them now?
as if they are coming. I'm still waiting.
Okay. Have they appeared?
Teacher,
Yes, please.
you might
No.
have to redeem time a bit.
Two?
To redeem time, I think he might be having a network issue. I don't know why they're not coming his side.
Okay, let me recite it. Jolly good boss.
Okay, I can read so that you do the analysis.
Okay, thank you.
Jolly good boss. He's a jolly good boss, sits behind a shiny mahogany desk, dreamy and contented, like an overfed python that has just swallowed a bearded goat. He's a good-natured fellow, always patting the rumps of secretaries in tight skirts, which say, marry me if you dare, laughs absent-mindedly, and sinks back into dear oblivion. He's an industrious head, gets dog-tired early in the morning from signing a few papers, whose contents he's mildly aware of, and leaves for lunch and for the day at 11:30 a.m. He is a humorous chap, jokes about how he is underpaid and overworked to his juniors, who laugh subserviently to conceal their indignation and grudging envy. He's a mighty generous comrade, brags about his Christ heart, being a proud donor of a few bastards to guileless girls under him, and believes he is a God-sanctioned mission that dates back to Abraham. He's a jolly good boss, a perfect paragon of leadership.
Okay, thank you so
By
much,
Chris
teacher.
Ledger. Okay.
Thank you so much. So, this is a sample extract. It's a poem, like we've said before. Now we
Yes.
have our question. titles are not just blanket statements. So that means that
They are still unmuting.
someone is talking in the background. Please unmute. So titles are not just blanket statements simply included by the poet, which means that titles don't just happen by coincidence. The writer doesn't just put them there deliberately. Rather, without aim, the writer or the poet uses the title deliberately, just like your mother would give you a name, or your grandfather or your auntie, they would give you names. For some people's tribes, names even have a relationship with their background, with how actually some names even determine how they turn out to behave. You find that somebody is a thief because of the name they were given. You may find that somebody is really virtuous, so nice in character because of the name they were given. So are titles. They are not just random statements, but they are deliberate inclusions. A title carries the weight of the poet's message. So you have to know that in every piece of writing, when a writer chooses to include a title, that title has got an impact on the message. And when you talk about the message, what does the writer want to deliver to you when they write a poem, passage, or a play? So the writer wants to help you understand issues like behavior, issues like social problems, issues like values, issues like lessons, and so many, and so on. So now the task here is discuss the significance of the title to the characterization in the poem. So I want you to pay attention to this. I have already mentioned it earlier on in my opening remarks when I was talking about section A. The significance of the title. So the aspect is the title, but now the effect or the importance of the title has been deliberately limited to a particular outcome. So how does the title relate to characterization? So how do you respond to a question like this? When responding to a question on the relevancy of a title to either the text or to a specific aspect of the text, it could be thematic concerns or characterization or atmosphere. Step one, in section A, step one, if you have a question on the significance of the title, you have to first deal with the meaning of the title, as you see on your screen. So now this is a sample answer. We have read the poem Jolly Good Boss, and we have seen indeed that the poet chooses very specific adjectives: 1, jolly; 2, good; 3, boss. Now, when you look at those adjectives, you expect really one, the noun boss talks of an employer or an executive in a company. But when you talk about goodness, you think of character, of behavior. So in the very first instance, as a reader, you get to understand that this is a character title. So dealing with the meaning begins with identifying what type of title you are talking about. So you can see that this title, 1, it is a character title. Why? Because it is mentioning the main character in the poem, who is boss, an executive, or a high-ranking official in the company. 2, they don't just mention the character, but they also talk about the attribute of the character, good. We expect this executive to be a good person with good manners. Jolly. The word jolly, delightful, somebody who you really love to associate with, somebody you love to relate with. So all the things I am saying are things that you should be noting down in your development of the meaning of the meaning of the title before you go ahead to discuss its significance. Now, we have read the poem. Really, I don't know if there is any good boss who leaves work at 11 a.m. or leaves for lunch at 11 a.m. and never returns. I don't know if there's any good boss who loves to hit the behind parts of women working under him. I don't know if there's any good boss who likes to have children with girls and then brags about how his is a God-sanctioned mission dating back to Abraham. Those of you who are Christians know the Bible. The Bible tells us that Abraham is the father of all nations. I hope I am very right. Now, father of all nations means that you produce children, but biblically, I think it is meant in terms of faith, all the children of God. But look at how this boss here compares himself to Abraham, that he's now also trying to be a father of all nations, producing as many children from as many women as he can. So I don't know if there is a good boss who can do those things. Now, as a reader, when you notice that really that cannot happen, a good boss cannot do that, something tickles your mind, you get to say, this is not just a character title. It is also, there's something ironic about the title. So you at the end of the day, besides saying it is a character title, you also comment on it as an ironic title. That is in the first step, as you see on your screen. I've written the title is both ironic and a character title. Why? The title Jolly Good Boss identifies the poem's main character, who is in fact the boss. He is a high-ranking officer at the company. By his status, he is expected to manifest ethical behavior. Ironically, throughout the subject matter, he is depicted to have a vile personality, that is to say bad manners, which contradict not only goodness, but also the expectations of the behavior of employees. So from what we can now confirm is that our poet Mogak intends to use the title satirically to condemn the behavior of boss in the poem. So now we have started by interpreting the meaning of the title. And we have said that in this title, the main purpose is to condemn the behavior of the boss in the poem. So now, after giving your interpretation of the meaning of the title, now you go ahead. How is it connected to characterization? I think the last statement of step one shows us it is significant to characterization because it is used to condemn the behavior of the boss. So thereafter, you go ahead to discuss the different negative character attributes of boss, which are condemned by the poet. So you can write a mini essay stating the traits. For example, the boss is this so-called jolly good boss. Actually, in the poem, turns out to be lazy. Then you illustrate how he is portrayed as lazy in the poem. Then you go ahead to talk about immorality, how he is disrespectful, and other traits up to the trait of being deceitful. So, but the first step you should remember give the interpretation of the meaning of the title, and then go ahead to discuss its connection by showing the different character traits that really are connected to the issue of being a point of, the title being a point of condemning the boss. Because of time, allow me to also move to question number 2. So question number 2. A poet employs a speaker as their mouthpiece. Now, in the poem, through the speaking voice, readers are introduced to the message. Identify the persona in the poem and describe his message. Now, if you remember where we started from, I said we should expect questions on subject matter. And the first 2 questions on our list there, under questions on subject matter, we had questions on the title and also questions on the speaker. So now these 2 questions are examples of subject matter based questions. Here we can see they ask us to identify the speaker. Then after identifying the speaker, we also describe his message. By describing his message, we want to discuss what the speaker is talking about or what he is saying or trying to convey or pass on in the poem. So step 1, when identifying the speaker, mention the point of view. So in that poem, we have a third person speaker. We see that the character is talking from an observer point of view, somebody who is seeing the behavior of the boss as he conducts himself at work. So how do we know that the speaker is a third person? The use of the third person pronoun he to refer to boss. Step 2, give the identity of the speaker if it is very clear. So in this poem, we can confirm that he is a critique of the boss. Why? Because throughout the poem, he is indirectly or sarcastically criticizing the boss. We could say he's an observer of the boss's behavior because we see that from the description, he is aware of the whole routine of the boss and how the boss conducts himself. We could also call him one of the employees because he must be one of those people who are present at work to be able to see all these things. So now, after identifying our speaker, then we are supposed now to connect the speaker to the subject matter. So we can say the speaker in the poem is the third person speaker, a critique of the boss's character. And in the poem, now we are connecting to the subject matter. The speaker criticizes. So now that links us, when we are talking about subject matter, at the back of our minds, our teachers must have told us that when we are analyzing subject matter, we are responding to the various 5 W's and 1 H of a given text. So every text must have a what, a topic, a who are the characters involved in that particular situation you're trying to talk about. Where does this situation happen in a particular place? Why? Why is the writer talking about a certain topic? How? How does the writer talk about that particular topic? When? Does the poet give us a sense of time or period? Okay, so now this is what I want us to see as we have put it for you there. Teacher Teddy, I would like to request to help me take us through. My throat is somehow running, so I want to first take some water.
Okay, sorry about that. So, like Teacher Solomon has said, you need to identify the speaking voice. Remember, we are looking at subject matter. So in this particular poem, we have a third person speaker, and it is very evident in the use of the pronoun he. Okay. And then, of course, when we look at the words that are being said, because he's very satirical, and you clearly see whatever he's saying has a bit of irony and humor. That is what brings out the satire. Then we know that this person is most likely to be a critic. Or if someone put an observer, they'd still be correct because it is a third person point of view. But it could even be an employee. So when you're writing your answer, these things have to come out. You have to tell us about the speaking voice. You have to tell us about the actual speaker. And then you have to now bring in the subject matter. You have to answer the 5 W's. So you find a way of summarizing what is there. So we've all agreed, or I hope we have agreed, that it is a criticism of a high-ranking company executive referred to as boss. Now that should be part of our answer. And then this person is at work. That is the environment we have. And he has made a habit of his bad manners. His routine, by 11:30, he's out of office. When he's in office, he's either touching the bodies of the secretaries, a very immoral person. That is why we here have how the poem exposes bosses' weaknesses and how they affect the company. So it portrays him as a lazy executive who barely meets his duties at work but prefers to retire early. And because of this, his relationship with his subordinates is very irritating, and he exploits the females sexually. But he is very shameless about all that he does, because at some point he talks about how he's proud of fathering all these children. Okay, so you find a way of summarizing the poem in your own words. But as you summarize, you need to tell us the point of view, the speaker, and then you also need to tell us the summary in terms of the 5 W's and the H, so that then someone can know what the subject matter is. Okay, so that is ideally what you should do for subject matter. You use the same thing to also talk about subject matter in a prose passage. Give us the point of view. You can tell the actual speaker, and then you summarize in your own words the 5 W's that you see in the passage. So this is a kind of technique that you can use to give the subject matter, or even plot when it comes to if you get a play drama extract. Okay. I think that's it for number 2, Teacher Solomon.
Okay, so maybe a short one. How much time do we have, Teacher Teddy? Because some people seem to be raising concerns about supper time in the
In their school.
In their schools.
I'm about to suggest that we do over 6:30. So in the 6 minutes that we have left, can we do the questions? Or maybe we do the last bit of because feelings, I think they can identify the last bit of the essay question. We can leave
Okay.
that one alone.
Right.
So that they get just a snippet, and then we can get into questions. I think when we start questions, people can leave at leisure, really.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Teacher Teddy. We should have loved to have a longer discussion to exhaust these matters, but as always, time is not our best friend. So let's try to do our best to try to also talk about a sample question in section B. So a short story always has a lasting impression on the reader. So whenever you read any short story, really, you may find it unforgettable. No matter its brevity, even when that story is very short, really, some stories can be very unforgettable. The writer captures those significant events in the conflict and makes the protagonist remarkable in the distilled the writer captures those significant events in the conflict and makes the protagonist remarkable in the distilled development. So, of course, writers always focus on very important events. For instance, if you talk about a short story like A Walk in the Night, you will find that we see events like the killing of Uncle Doughty. We could think of events like the sacking of Michael Adonis and so on and so forth, and makes the protagonist remarkable in the distilled development. So the main character in that short story really stands out because of how that character responds to the situations that he experiences in the text. Now, what is our task? Choose one character from a set short story you have studied. Describe the unique personality that makes that character memorable. So, unique personality, that means we are going to identify the traits of this character that really make the character stand out as one we cannot forget in that particular short story. So, describe someone I think is trying to copies from the screen, but you are distorting my vision. I request that you stop. Maybe you can just take a screenshot. So choosing one character from a short story you have studied, describe the unique personality that makes that character memorable. So I've already talked about the issue of character traits, but there's a particular issue here. Choose one character. So in your essay, you must show that you are going to choose a character. Then from a selected short story, you must also tell us what short story you have selected. So to save time, step one, choose a selected book. For example, for purposes of illustration, we chose to talk about A Walk in the Night, but it is a very good thing. It is a very good thing for you to not just choose a short story, but to also try to give us an interpretation of that short story. Before you go to the task, that's what Teacher Teddy tried to talk about, of text interpretation. So if you can do that, first talk about what you think A Walk in the Night is about. And as you see on the screen, I said that A Walk in the Night is the short story I've selected. In this novella, the author exposes the horrors of apartheid or the evils of apartheid, which is a system of race discrimination. These horrors are in South Africa using the fictional context of District 6. Besides, the story also illustrates the struggles of Black people as they try to go through or to manage their lives through the oppressive system. Then next, I went to the task. The text has a variety of characters, so you must really be very discursive and conversational and in control. And Teacher Teddy talked about the issue of literary language. So you see, I am using words like fictional context. I am using words like characters. Then expressions like main character. When I say I will focus on the main character, Michael Adonis, we know that in short stories, we say main character, whereas in drama, we could call it the main character, a protagonist. A Black man sacked, so we must also identify who our character is. We know Michael Adonis is a Black man sacked by his employers. I think I should have typed white, by his white employers at the metal sheet factory. How is he portrayed in the text? Of course, the author portrays him as a dynamic character. So that is part of the literary language, character portrayal. A dynamic character, as a dynamic character, he shows both goodness and weakness. But this kind of dynamism is a response to the environmental factors around him. So sometimes he is good because of what factor around him is responding to, and others he portrays weaknesses in character because of what he is being faced with. So in the end, Laguma uses his traits to show racism. So in my introduction, I have talked about the text and the task. So Teacher Teddy asked me to work up to 8:30, 6:30 to 30, but I've exceeded by 2 minutes. Probably to briefly speak to save time, I can go ahead and discuss the different traits of Michael Adonis. For example, you can say he's violent, he's short-tempered, but on a positive note, he's also generous. Those who have read the book know that he helps out other characters. Willie Boy gets into trouble because he's coming to Michael Adonis for assistance. He's also caring. He's bold. He's vengeful. We know what he does to Uncle Dottie. He kills Uncle Dottie because that has that feeling of wanting to pay back towards the white people. Then he's also stubborn. Joe Boy warns him not to join the criminal gang led by Foxy, but of course he doesn't listen to him. He continues to join them. We should have had a broader discussion or elaboration of those points, but I hope we shall have another opportunity to do that. But at the end, you must supply a conclusion. Now, this conclusion must be an analysis of what, like a comment that sums up or gives your opinion on what you have been discussing. It must be well thought and very deliberate. For instance, we see that in the text, Michael Adonis has both good traits and weaknesses. But we know in our assessment of his character that his weak traits like violence are not really very natural of him, that he was born to be that way. These are constructs of the environment that he lives in, the apartheid system. But his good traits also show us that no matter how weak a person may be, still their goodness cannot be totally destroyed. So you see the statements that I am making. Those are the very statements that I will be writing for my conclusion, because these statements are showing a pure analysis of the kind of personality Michael Adonis is. Teacher Teddy, I beg to submit.
Thank you very much, Teacher Solomon. That was well done. I know time is not on our side, but I hope that from this exposure, you kind of have an idea of what is expected of you, especially the introduction and the conclusion, because the points will keep differing depending on the task. But in your introduction, please remember to state which text you have decided to use, the author or playwright of that text, and then, an overview of the book itself, and then you give your interpretation of the task in your introduction. Then in your conclusion, remember to include some opinion of the task that you have been doing. Okay, I guess that wraps up what we had prepared for you. And for now, if people want to go for supper, it is well, but we shall take those who have burning questions as fast as possible so that we can let you go to enjoy your weekend.
Maybe they can
Someone is
raise their
talking about
hands.
sharing the slides. Yes, this will be done, but also the whole lesson has been recorded on YouTube, so you can go back to and listen in your own time. I think Mr. Kaziba will share the YouTube link so that you can go back and listen in your own time. Teacher Solomon?
Mpoma School Girls Campus has a hand up. So let's start with a question. Please, Mpoma School, open mic and ask a question. Mpoma School, please unmute your mic. Maybe Mr. Kaziba can help us probably. Okay,
No,
shares.
it's okay. I'm unmuted.
Okay.
Good evening. So my question is, yes, are they going to separate between novels and short stories, or are they going to have to do one of them? Like, are they going to basically set a task targeting a novel alone and a short story alone, or they're going to be a novel or a short story?
Okay. I think you come in when we had looked at that part. I said the questions will be very specific in paper 1. In section B, you'll have 4 essay tasks that you will have to choose from. So you'll have 2 on drama and 2 on the novel and short story, but you choose one. Okay, so you'll choose one novel task, and then you'll also choose one play or drama task. Okay, I hope that has answered your question.
We have Arena Shine.
Shine.
I would like to ask, how do they use a dialogue while writing a short story?
Okay. Teacher Teddy.
When you're writing a short story, the dialogue is used by you actually writing the actual words in inverted commas. Like you do your English language where you write direct speech. So in that short story, if you want to put someone's actual words, you put your open quotes. You put your open quotes, you put the actual words, then punctuate correctly. It might be a question, a statement, a comma, close quotes, put for us who has said. And every time someone is speaking, you kind of have to start a new paragraph. I think this is something that was taught in your O-level English as well, in your composition writing. So for you to include dialogue, it has to be in the short story, and you can only show it by putting the inverted commas that actually show that something is direct speech. I hope I've answered your question.
Okay,
But Shine, you can even have a look at your novels, Pride and Prejudice, Moon also sets, and you see how they write the dialogues. That is exactly how you're supposed to write it in your creation.
Okay.
Father Aloysia Secondary School. Father Aloysia Secondary School, unmute your mic and we receive your question.
I'm asking them to unmute, but I think they are not seeing. So
Okay, let's have Maracha SS as Father Aloysius.
okay, then
Okay.
Mine, I just want to understand on will there be the storyline? Will it be the core? And I want to understand the difference between the storyline and the prologue. That's the whole thing.
Okay.
what do you mean by storyline?
Yeah, this storyline, it is like what we will be writing in paper 2, creative work. What we'll be writing as a summary of our play. For instance, if we are writing the play.
Well, I still haven't understood, but let me use what I think. Now, no one is going to give you a storyline because you must come up with your own story. But the question is going to give you a scenario, something that you need to imagine and interpret so that you now come up with your own plot or story. And then you craft your story to have events with a cause and effect relationship so that you have a proper plot. So you won't get a story line per se, but you'll get a scenario that you have to interpret. And then after you've interpreted it, you can now create your own original work. So don't expect someone to tell you that there's a school, and in this school, maybe the students have gone on strike, and then their head teacher's car is burnt, because that is what storyline is. No one is going to tell you that, but they'll give you general stuff, maybe immorality in a government, and maybe one of the workers in that government decide to stop this immorality, write a play, that kind of thing. So you won't get a storyline, but you'll get a scenario for you to interpret.
Okay, let's take a question from Maracha SS.
I think Maracha asked, they've just forgotten to put down their hand.
There is Nathan.
Nathan also asked.
Mpefu SS. Mpefu SS.
Mpefu is unmuted. I just don't know why they are not speaking. Okay. So I'd like to think that the hands have been dealt with, unless Mpefu is willing to speak. I don't know if there are any questions in the chat that you think we haven't handled, so that we look at those and call it a day.
probably maybe the question that I see here, somebody is asking, what does critiquing mean in her? So many people are typing and the question is moving away. What does critiquing mean in paper one?
Okay. Critiquing means to analyze. So you know how in literature we talk about the 5 elements of literature and say that in literature there must be plot, there must be themes, there must be characters and traits and relationships, there must be techniques, there must be setting. So when we talk about critiquing, we are kind of analyzing. Let me use a simple word that might make sense to your generation. We are judging this book in terms of plot, in terms of themes, in terms of characters, in terms of setting, in terms of techniques. So when we begin to analyze or judge that yes, this book has techniques, but which techniques does it have? It has imagery, it has contrast. Then you'll come to another book and maybe it has irony, it has soliloquy. So that is what critiquing is, picking out those elements of literature in line with a book. That is what to critique is, in simple terms, I think.
Probably this one will be the last one, but let me not skip this one. Somebody asked if we need to illustrate when it comes to feelings. Please illustrate all your answers. Don't leave them hanging. You must illustrate. Then the very last one, Teacher Teddy, how do we create tension or conflict in a piece of writing? I think that one will be our last question.
That comes with practice. When you talk about tension, you're talking about extreme feelings, whether they are very high or very low, very happy or very sad. So if you want to create a very sad, gloomy, melancholy thing, then it can be by music if it's a play. Maybe you say a sad song playing in the background. It can be by actions. Are people sad? Do they look sad? What about the environment? Is it dark? Is it... So there are various ways in which we can create tension. What about the words that are being used? Is someone using abusive words to show that they're extremely annoyed and cause tension around all the other characters? So there are various ways in which we can create tension. Are we using a character who's very bossy and whenever they walk in, the whole world, wants to ask the ground to swallow them and things like that? So you use different ways to create tension, but you need to first determine, is your tension sad? Is it excitement? Is it happy? Is it anger or bitterness and things like that? So that then you can use different ways. You can use the atmosphere, you can use characters, you can use the words that are being said, you can use the setting itself, because if people are in hospital, you kind of expect tension, while if people are in the sitting room of a house, maybe it's not as tense. So all these are various ways in which you can create tension. As for conflict comes in at the start, because every story is built on conflict. So you need to decide, is it an intra-conflict within someone who's fighting for their life? Or is it inter-conflict, one person against another person? Maybe a parent against their child who's being disobedient, or a school, group against group, a school administration against students. But that conflict is created at the start of any work of art. So you need to to kind of determine intra-conflict or inter-conflict. If it's inter-conflict, is it between groups or one person against a group? All those you do at the start of either a play or a novel. Some of these things I think your teachers have talked about, or they will continue to talk about them so that they guide you better in creating your own works of art. Okay, so I want to take this opportunity to thank all those who have been on throughout the lesson and those who have stuck it out up to now. Thank you very much for listening to us. I hope we've all picked something. And I also want to thank Teacher Solomon for the words of advice he's given us and the good lesson that we have had. We wish you all the best as you prepare for your mocks, but also as you prepare for your UNEB exams. And please make use of your teachers as much as possible so that they help you get better and better. May God bless you in all that you do. Have yourselves a wonderful evening and weekend. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Teacher Teddy and Teacher Solomon, for the wonderful presentation. And we thank all the schools. The recording for the session will be available today evening on YouTube for those who came in a bit late. And let's meet tomorrow for another session on research proposal. We shall start at 9 and end at any time before 1. Thank you so much once again, Teacher Teddy and Teacher Solomon, for the wonderful presentation.
You're
You're
welcome.
welcome. Thank you, Mr. Kaziba, for organizing this.
Have a good day, everyone.